As NSS cavers, we've all gradually discovered that there are many areas and ways in which we can get involved in the world of caving. There's cave science and research, photography, cartography, vertical work, cave art and music, rescue, youth activities, regional campouts and festivals, and just good old recreational caving, among several others. The 12-minute video you're about to watch focuses on cave conservation and specifically cave restoration activities done by the dedicated NSS cavers who comprise the Mammoth Cave Restoration Field Camp.
The historic entrance of Mammoth Cave is arguably the most recognizable on the planet.
To think of everything that's ever passed through this cave entrance over the decades.
Native Americans seeking shelter.
Early settlers hunting bear.
Saltpeter miners around the time of the War of 1812.
And of course, there are the over 85 million tourist visitors since records first were kept in 1936.
It sure makes you think that this cave, with over 408 miles of known passage, is a place worth preserving. I'm Brian Hunsaker.
And I'm Gary Gabula. We're here today to share with you the story of how NSS cavers have been working with the National Park Service and other local cave owners on cave conservation projects, and why that's very important to cavers like Brian and myself.
It's a collaborative effort that's been going on for 30 years now.
Wow.
That's really good.
It all started when Louisville caver Bill Austin and others laid down some rules and started relying on the cooperation of fellow cavers to start thinking about conserving caves rather than just using them. In 1989, a caver named David Irving organized the first official Mammoth Cave restoration effort as a pre-convention field camp. The idea caught on quickly.
I started doing restoration of Mammoth in 1988, a year before the first week-long camp. I was new to the NSS, and I was recreationally caving most every weekend, and this started as a way of me giving back. It's got to be a group effort between the Park Service, the NSS volunteers. None of them could do it by themselves.
Lint removal is just one of the below-ground tasks at Mammoth. With more than 1,000 tourists walking the cave trails most every day, fibers from clothing inevitably rise up into the cave air and eventually settle back down. The crew uses battery-powered HEPA vacuums as well as brooms and dustpans to pick up the lint. Above-ground work for the restoration crew recently included dredging gravel from the stream bed where the Echo River Spring bubbles up from the cave.
Behind me is the Echo River Spring, one of several above-ground projects that the NSS Cave Restoration Group has been a part of. To improve the cave ecosystem and the aquifer, we have been dredging gravel from the Echo River Spring to help improve flow of the water to the Green River.
Under the supervision of park ecologist Rick Olson, as well as Superintendent Barclay Trimble, both of whom worked alongside the resto crew, excess gravel was shoveled into grass sacks, which were then hauled away and eventually spread along the shoulder of roadways throughout the park. One of the primary tasks for the crew has been to remove old wiring that was left behind after Mammoth Cave converted to LED lighting. Thousands of feet of 1 to 3 inch thick electric cable lie tucked behind rocks, running through deep, rugged canyons, and even buried in the dirt alongside tourist trails. The first step is to locate the dead wire and to make sure there's no electric current running through it. Heavy-duty bolt cutters then are used to cut the wire into manageable sections.
The lengths of wire are dragged from the off-trail area onto the path, coiled, and sherped out of the cave. It's loaded into a truck and brought to a maintenance area, where it's eventually sold to a copper recycler.
Being an NSS caver is all about preserving caves and their natural contents. But for me, helping with wire removal and tasks like this in Mammoth Cave, it really hits the message home for me as a caver.
There's no telling exactly how much more wire is left to be removed from Mammoth Cave, but NSS restoration cavers will continue their efforts until the job is done. Another major below-ground project involved removal of a wooden pier and concrete pad from a section of the Echo River that formerly had boat tours. First, the boats were removed. Then the concrete pad to which the boats were lashed during the spring rainy season was broken up into chunks and hauled away. Then, cavers donned their wetsuits and eventually removed the creosote wood pier that had been polluting the in-cave aquifer. Subsequent trips scoured the shallow river to remove all wood and other debris from the bottom. Another ongoing effort for the restoration cavers is to chisel away chunks of concrete from rocks that are near Vanderbilt Hall.
This is my second year coming to a restoration camp, and the reason that I do is I think it's really fun. We're all a big family, and I love giving back to the national parks.
Another recent below-ground project took place at the 107-foot-deep Washington Pit, in a now-closed segment of tourist trail, where a constant flow of water had been dripping onto a creosote bridge. Gary and Brian took measurements and then modified a car canopy to freestand on the bridge and divert the drip water from hitting any of the creosote wood before dripping down into the aquifer. The list of above and below ground accomplishments by the Mammoth Cave Restoration Field Camp is extensive, and it includes work at other nearby cave sites as well.
The NSS volunteer cavers have been coming to the park for over 30 years. The value of this work is just incredible. For one thing, if you tried to calculate what its worth is, it'd be well in excess of $1 million. But perhaps the most important thing is that these people are very dedicated. They care about the cave. We can't get people to come in and do this restoration work without causing further damage, because people don't know about caves, they don't care about caves, but these people do.
Rick Olson reiterated that the Restoration Field Camp cavers have an intangible bond in their camaraderie. Although some cavers are able to participate only sporadically, and others for all 4 of the annual gatherings, the group is like a family.
In terms of cave conservation, the rebirth of Horse Cave into Hidden River Cave could not have happened without the collaboration of multiple entities. That includes public agencies, the public, and dedicated cavers who all work toward the common goal. Today, Hidden River Cave is a shining example of what can be accomplished when people work together for the sake of cave conservation. I hope it inspires many others to do likewise. Mammoth Cave National Park is extremely grateful for the efforts of cavers who donate their time in the ongoing conservation of Mammoth Cave, other caves within the park, and our above-ground resources. The work you perform is a wonderful example of how volunteerism is an essential factor in preserving the natural and cultural treasures of the National Park Service, and more specifically Mammoth Cave National Park, which is a World Heritage Site and a core component of the Mammoth Cave Area Biosphere Reserve. Without our volunteers and their willingness to help, Mammoth Cave National Park would not appear as it does today. I cherish my time working alongside our Resto volunteers, and the camaraderie and conversations I've had about preserving and protecting something we all treasure is truly inspiring. All your hard work certainly sets a great example to others about cave and karst conservation overall.
When I go caving, I think it's important to set an example about cave conservation to the public as well as to other cavers. When I see the smallest bit of trash in a cave, it's my instinct to pick it up and just put it in my pocket. Just as Bill Austin and others started out doing, we've got to educate and spread the word about conserving caves. In the words of Tom Brucker, prevention beats cleanup every time.
The Mammoth Cave Restoration Field Camp provides many benefits, both to the cavers and the National Park Service. There are tangible benefits, such as the ability to provide a labor force skilled at working in the cave environment, and of course, the direct and visible changes we make to Mammoth Cave itself and the ecosystem. Equally important are the intangible benefits, such as the camaraderie and sense of community that come from being a part of a group of like-minded cavers focused on the conservation of such an amazing resource.
Well, how do you think that went?
It was okay, I guess. Except for that one part.
You think people are going to get the message about cave conservation and the value of cave restoration and what the Restoration Field Camp does at Mammoth Cave, and taking that message to their own backyards and being inspired to do the same thing?
I sure hope so.
Boy, howdy!